What's up, y'all? It's Cecil West, Beyond the Harmony, beyondtheharmony.com. Back again with the one and only
J-Lie.
And this is your question of the week. John, I'm going to do one that you love. I know that you love when we do this type of video, but I'm going to give you one that we haven't done yet. We've done most of the Bone albums this way, and it keeps fans asking, it keeps even you asking, when are we going to get to some of the solos? Today is that day. Today, John, I need to know what's the best, what's the worst, what's your favorite, and what is the most important song from Krayzie Bone's Thug Mentality 1999?
Bro. Looking at this one, first off, we probably just need to do a track list just to remind people. I forgot how phenomenal this album is. This one may be right after Eternal, as
We're,
in best album.
we're,
In ways, I almost put this whole album up against Art of War as a double album.
we're talking almost 40 tracks, probably 35 full songs. This thing is a fucking masterpiece mammoth of an album.
And I didn't even fully appreciate how mammoth of amazement this thing is at the time. Like, I was thrilled. I was blown away that it was a double CD when it came out. But even then, it didn't, we were still living in the golden age of everything. So life was just phenomenal at the time of this coming out. But looking back on this now, there's so many, it's going to be so hard to choose for any category because there's so much quality material to choose from that I almost want to see you go first on some of these because, in fact, I think we're going to have to do these one by
every
one.
one of them.
Well, why don't we do these one by one, because this is just so. This is Thug Mentality 90. This is Krayzie Bone in his freaking prime. So I'll tell you what. This is how we're going to do this one. We'll do them one at a time, meaning like I'll do my favorite, then you do your favorite, and back and forth. Because again, this is the mammoth opus right here.
Okay.
Ready?
I'm with it. We'll go with whatever. We'll do them one at a time. You want to go first? You want me to go first?
I'll go first, but which category are we dropping first?
Let's start with let's just get the one out of the way. Let's just go best, worst, favorite, most important.
All right. We'll go with best. And best is so different to even discuss because I have three contenders, and I'm going to give you one out of the three, and I'm going to give you why. So the first nominee is Heated Heavy. The second nominee is Armageddon. And the third nominee is Silence. And this is for best. Okay, this doesn't mean my favorite, but this is for best. The reason why I offered Armageddon and Silence, so Silence is engineered and produced so phenomenally. Like when you listen to that in headphones, you hear it was so mastered so perfectly that I'm saying as far as production goes, that one was phenomenal. Armageddon was so jam-packed with different guests. You had Krayzie Bone, Soulja Boy, a whole bunch of people were on it, and epic. It's an epic storyline, right? And you even have narrations from like the Bible, and so the epicness goes to Armageddon. But pound for pound, the absolute best is Heated Heavy, because it's probably Krayzie Bone's best song he's ever done as a solo artist, possibly even overall. Production is phenomenal on it. Everything about Heated Heavy is top notch, top tier, top shelf. So that's why I'm going with Heated Heavy for best. I'm curious to hear what you got for your best.
I mean, I don't think that it'll blow your dome here to know that I'm running with the AK-47. I don't think that it'll blow your mind to know that I'm bucking Heated Heavy. Okay. I don't think that it'll blow your mind that I wet them when I get them. Okay. Heated Heavy is by far the best song. And it's hard to give this title away on this particular album. Sometimes we do these and it's real easy to pick out these and give the title away. This one, we are talking a plethora. We are talking a fucking a magnum opus amount of fucking crazy, colossal, just verbal asteroids smashing into the earth at full fucking speed is this almost 40 tracks of Flame and Fire. Trying to make these motherfuckers compete and putting one on a number one podium is almost impossible. It's like you need to build 35 number one podiums and put them all side by side and pass out different gold medals for them all. It's so fucking good. But Heated Heavy takes the crown because when that intro dropped and then Heated Heavy was the first thing that he gave you and it blew your fucking face off and you just weren't prepared for the rest of the album, you always had to go back and remember, oh yeah, that's my piece of face over there from getting blown the fuck off from Heated Heavy 2 discs ago. This is not only the best song, but this may be Krayzie Bone at his absolute best. Me and you have had conversations where we talk about the difference between trying and not trying. Krayzie Bone doesn't have to try on this. He just makes it look and sound so fucking easy the way he delivered on Heated Heavy. And there's a lot of competition. If you guys haven't seen this track list, I'm hoping we're throwing it on the screen right now. And it's crazy how much competition there is, but absolutely Heated Heavy, best song on the album.
Yeah. So that's unanimous. Heated Heavy, phenomenal. And So if we went from the best and we thought that was hard, the next one's hard because it's like, what's the worst song on the album? Because I would phrase it, what's your least favorite song on the album? Because there's nothing bad on this album. So when I was evaluating it, I was clicking through the whole album just trying to find something bad. There's nothing. There's nothing bad. There's nothing bad. There's nothing worst. But there's things that I like more than others. So my least favorite is it's a toss up between these 3 tracks. You got Smoke and Burn, which there's elements of it that's just like slightly annoying, but the instrumental is really cool because it's that cool smoke and burn. I like how it sounds, but there's aspects of it that just gets annoying. I wish that song was a little bit different, but it's still memorable. Then you got like Try Me. I'm kind of like, all right, whatever. And then Where My Thug's At, you would think that wouldn't be a least favorite, but I've never been a fan of like that Leatherface Krayzie Bone voice. The gruffin sounding like he's a guard dog voice. Like I'm not too much into those. There's like a whole collection of those kind of Krayzie Bone songs, and they've never been my favorite. So I like the title, I like the hook, Where My Thug's At, but it's a lot of that one's a little too noisy for me. So I think I would prefer hearing Smoke and Burn and Try Me over Where My Thug's At. So Where My Thug's At is probably my least favorite on Thug Mentality 99. What you got for your least favorite or worst, and how do you want to phrase it?
I'm phrasing it as worst. Absolutely. I normally this would not be an acceptable answer if it didn't end in a song. And what I mean is we got a bunch of skits on this album. And normally I would say, well, you can't use a skit, but this skit ends musically in a song. And so I'm going to classify it as a song and a track. It's its own thing. And I absolutely hate it. I hate it. I hate it. It's terrible. I hate it. In fact, I had to make a custom disc too, just to remove it so I didn't have to deal with it. And it's track 10, Look at You Now skit. I absolutely hate the fuck out of that. It's the worst track. It's the worst situation. Everybody can save the artistic element, blah, blah, blah. I fucking hate it. I don't have to get into why. I hate it for obvious reasons. It's too bad I hate it because I love the sample and I even love the way Krayzie Bone flows at the end. But I've only got to hear that a couple times because it's always a skip or it's a straight removal. And so Look at You Now, worst song on the album.
Yeah, the skits. There's some skits that I'm always in and out on skits, and I don't like that skit either that you're talking about. But like skits are fun, but then over time they get if they're not done right, they get kind of played out. But when they're done good, they really like good interludes. There's good interludes, and then there's some that are just like why, over repeated listens. But
yeah, there were, I think, let's see here. If you include the intro,
Yeah, like
Wow.
the dumb, like there's the
There were
Dummy
like
Man skit.
like 5 or 6 intros. Now, so, they're not all bad because Crazy Bone's creative. So like the Dummy Man skit, I don't know if it had to be its own track. It probably could have just been at the beginning, a Dummy Man or whatever.
Yeah.
But it was cool. It was creative. Most of the stuff is like fun and creative. Even like the Messenger where motherfuckers get message from Miss Jones, motherfucker. Like e- e- even those shits, it was like theatrically put together. That
Mm.
one, the Look at You Now was just tasteful and shitty, and I didn't like it. So worst song.
Yeah. Yeah. Like sad song, I don't even consider that a skit. I consider that uh, Crazy Bone teasing us with a really good snippet.
Hmm.
But anyway, segueing into most important. And generally, when we do this, it's usually the singles, and I'm keeping it in the singles. And the three singles with music videos was Thug Mentality, I Still Believe, and Paper. And you would think that I Still Believe was the most important, being that it carried Mariah Carey and the Brat in some versions. But realistically, Thug Mentality was the most important for the album. It was basically the marketing piece that sold it, the title track. It's funny. I think Thug Mentality is probably my least favorite song on the album, just because we had to hear it so many times. But I can't deny that it's well put together. So the most important, it's kind of like the Captain Obvious. It's like the Crossroads from Eternal. I'm picking Thug Mentality for most important. Curious to hear if you have a different take on the most important.
I sure do, Buckaroo. I usually do the same thing that you do, and I pick a single, and I pick the single for obvious reasons because usually the single is the driving force. It's the thing that carried it. It's the Kobe, it's the LeBron, it's the Jordan, it's the fucking heart of the team. And I would love to say that that was the same situation here, but I got to set the stage. I got to make the tone. I got to bring motherfuckers back all the way back to 1998, coming off the heels of successful records, and yet we are seeing the Mo Thugs fall apart. Looks like Bone is breaking up after the Art of War. You got Busy Bone with a solo. You now got Crazy Bone with a solo. You have people repeatedly asking, is Bone over? Is Bone broken up? Is it done? They got all these solo records. What's going on? And then bang, at the end of disc one, we shut them all down with Thug Always. And Crazy Bone does what I always love to see, which is a solo album, and you bring all your group mates on to just shine, shine, shine on motherfuckers and let them know that this is Bone Always. And even though it's underrated, it may not even be in the top 5 of all the songs on the record. The most important song to me is Thug Always, because I remember getting that record in 1999 and not reviewing it in 2020, but getting it in 1999 and playing the record through and hearing Thug Always and going, Bone Thugs and Harmony is all on this fucking track. The band is still together. The boys didn't break up. They are Thug Always. And so to me, the most important track is Thug Always, because you got to remember the circumstances, you got to remember the time, and you got to remember what a song like that was proving. And I think it proved it, with the exception of No Busy Bone, but it proved it. And I also will say that I loved that Bone was in the Thug Mentality video as well. I thought that that also was a great touch.
Yeah, and did you kind of were you thrown off when it was amazing that Gangster Boo was on We Starvin'. Obviously E40 was on it too, but this was, we're talking about that 98, 99 time, so there was like the supposed beef, 3 6 Mafia and Bone, and then you got Gangster Boo saying, "Hey, I'm with whatever that pays me. They're crazy, think I'm crazy for hooking up with Crazy. I'm with whatever that pays me." And then on the same album you have Shoot the Club Up, right? So there's a
Mm.
diss track to 3 6 Mafia, a clear diss like response to Tear the Club Up, to Shoot the Club Up. But then simultaneously you got Gangster Boo on We Starvin'. How did you work that out in your mind at the time?
I mean, you know how I worked that out. He just shot your club up and then stole your bitch. Like he, I just saw that as we winning over here on Team Bone. Like, you know, that's how I saw that. It's cool. We shot the club up, and now we stole your female hitter. Well, welcome to Ruthless.
And at the same time as well, with beefs going on, you have the wars on with Snoop and Corrupt from Death Row, right? And Bones with Ruthless. Like, when do you remember your thoughts? Like, wow, how could this even be possible?
I, let me tell you, I remember the entire track list and just thinking, how is this possible? I mean, again, you got to think of what we knew about Bone up till this point. Most of the Bone records mostly featured Bone or Bone affiliates. And then you got a couple times where like a Tupac would show and prove or Bone would show up with Biggie. But like you didn't have Bone albums that were like overfilled with like big names. Now all of a sudden you got Trench from Naughty by Nature. You got 8 Ball and MJG. You got fucking Fat Joe and Big Pun. Like you said, Snoop and Corrupt. Mariah was on there. Gangsta Boo and E40 are on there. I mean, the Marley brothers are on there. So we're going all star. We're going all star all of a sudden.
And Tretch, wasn't Tretch on there too with Thugs All Over the World?
I said him
You
first.
said Tretch?
I said
Okay,
him
okay.
first. Yeah. And so it was like not only was I blown away by Snoop Dogg and Corrupt just because of the previous thing, although I will say by 99 I think it had started to slow down. After Pac was killed, things really started to like come around and motherfuckers wanted to show unity over being killed. But it was still cool to see, but the entire track list was just like, holy fuck. And, the other thing is it's like you'd assume that there was a big budget there, but Romeo told us that it wasn't a budget like that. A lot of this happened off the back of who Krayzie Bone is, and people just wanted to do songs with him. Which is amazing. I mean, this is an all-star, especially when you think of that time frame.
Yeah.
Pun, Joe, Snoop, 8 Ball and MJG, Mariah fucking Carey. These are heavy hitters. So the whole track list.
And the other part that I thought was amazing about all the features was, there were some people that were like, all right, Tupac, All Eyes on Me, I had a lot of guests on it. It was in that same caliber because All Eyes on Me, all those features were real deal features. It felt like they really showed up to do that album. But then there was like compilation albums and stuff, like not to even, this is not a knock on it, but like the West Coast Bad Boys by No Limit, and I think E40 even had one like the Southwest Ballers or something. Those were just like compilations, right? It wasn't, and then there'd be like some rappers would just have a gazillion features, but this is before features got played out. This is back when features still mattered, and it was still conceptual and it was still like a real relationship. And that's what, and with like Tupac, you expect that, right? But for Krayzie Bone to get all these people on his album at that time, it was totally mind blowing. So yeah, absolutely on that. So then that takes us to favorite. And favorite for me is actually easy because especially back then, we had all this great material. We had no idea how great it was because again, we were living in the best of times. But Murder Mo has always been the absolute bomb track altogether. But Silent Warrior was always a favorite of mine. These Days, World War, Power, Street People, the whole album, the whole rest of the album, like everything's my favorite. But the absolute total favorite is Murder Mo.
I knew that was gonna be it. I knew that was gonna be it, and I don't blame you. That's and I think that even Krayzie Bone, to some extent must have kind of felt like that because it almost ends the album. I think like, in fact, I always thought that should kind of end it, not the Marley Brothers song. But I like that Marley Brothers song as well. But I knew that was gonna be your favorite. You probably know what my favorite is.
If I had to guess, I'd go with the Heated Heavy, but you tell me.
Stacking my artillery shot to the enemies, we fuck up the cops. Shit'll kill them on the spot. Throw them in the lake right over the rocks and get the fuck away and don't get caught. Heated Heavy, baby. Heated Heavy. I don't even have to tell you again. All the reasons that I said it was the best is why it's also my favorite. It just I talked a lot in this about that time frame, that 1999 time frame, and why Thugs Always was really important because of what we were experiencing as fans at that time and not reflecting back at 2020, but like actually what it felt like at that time. And I can just distinctly remember Heated Heavy happening, and even though I knew how great Crazy Bone was, especially because of the Art of War, I think the Art of War really told us a lot about Crazy Bone. Even though I knew it, it was kind of like when you watch a player play sports on television, but then you get the chance to see them live. You see them in action. Sure, you knew they were great. You knew Jordan was great from TV, but that time you got to sit floor side and you saw that motherfucker really shoot, you found out. And that's how I felt about Heated Heavy. And because it was the first thing I heard, I often wonder if a different song that was just as great was track two instead of Heated Heavy, would I feel like that? But it was something about that initial hit of Heated Heavy, and it just blew my mind. And it's always been my favorite track because I feel like it shows greatness from Crazy Bone. I feel like you could play it for a rap fan that may not be a Bone fan, and just be like, I want to show you why he's the man, and you could show that and blow them the fuck away.
I almost want to add because this album is so large. I mean, we're looking at this 18 tracks on disc one, 20 on disc two. And there's this idea that there's a third disc out there, like there was supposed to be a re-release with an additional CD. And actually, I don't even know, were any of those songs that are supposedly going to be on this third disc, were they ever released? Is there like a cut
I,
track Thug Mentality thing
I
out
don't
there?
know. I mean, there's lots of like tracks out there that people say are from Thug Mentality 99. I think we've missed the boat on that, by the way, because 2019 would have been the redrop, and that's when he was going to do it, and it obviously didn't happen. But hopefully it happens. I need more songs about making motherfuckers eat the Mossberg. Like, I need more.
Yeah, and then so for Slept On, do you have, because like I said, the album is so large, do you feel like there's a song on this album that is so good that it may be overlooked because there's so many good songs that you feel like one kind of gets buried underneath all the rest? Maybe
Mm,
deserves a little bit of, I mean, it's kind of like on the spot. It's a new
I don't.
category.
I would say, and I'm not saying that this is like a better song than a lot of them, because in a lot of ways I actually feel like it's a lesser song than a bunch of them, but one that I think is slept on, and maybe because it just comes so late in the game, but like Revolution with the Marley Brothers is a
Yeah.
really good song. And I don't know if it's just because it's late in it. I don't know if it's because it's the Marley Brothers, it's a different vibe. I don't know what it is, but I don't see people talk about it a lot. And I do think Revolution is kind of slept on, because it is a good song. I mean, it's not like one of my favorites on there. Like I could easily put probably fucking 8 to 10 songs ahead of it. Um, but I never really hear people talk about it.
Yeah,
Which kind of
it's
makes you think that it, like, people don't like it, and I don't think that's the case. I just think it's late in it, and so much happens before it that it gets slept on.
yeah, I always felt Revolution had its own like world to it. Kind of like the Smoke and Burn. I used to feel like Smoke and Burn and Revolution didn't really feel like they were part of the rest of the Thug Mentality album. It almost felt like they were done by different producers in a different area. But they were cool that they were on the album. They just felt like it was a different storyline
It,
than Thug Mentality.
it never felt like, I will say, as perfect as the album is, and I feel like the track list is put together really nicely. I will say that that was the only thing that felt like that shouldn't have been the ending. We got all these intros and skits. I would have at least put some sort of outro that tied everything up, or put a song at the end that seemed to tie up the album. Revolution didn't really seem to tie up the album to me, so it kind of just seemed out of place. Even
Hmm.
if maybe they would have flip flopped Murder Mo and Revolution, maybe it would
Hmm.
have. And maybe that's why Revolution doesn't get the shine, because it's like by the time you get through all these discs, or these two discs and all these songs, and then you get slapped with Murder Mo,
Yeah.
to put Revolution after it was kind of unfair. So Revolutions, I think, is slept on.
Yeah, yeah, and actually from a track listing perspective of the way the storyline goes, Armageddon, then Revolution, then Murder Mo might have made more sense too.
Mm.
I also have a final question for you on this, and
You
that
got a
is,
slept on? What was your slept on?
yeah, great, great. I think even though it's a big name track, I think Armageddon is the most slept on track on the album,
Hmm. It's one of my
because
favorites.
yeah, it's such an amazing song. It's so epic. Like literally, when we say epic, it fits all the descriptions of being an epic track. Although it's amazing that it's only 4 minutes and 16 seconds long. It feels like a longer song. It feels like you experience so much in that track. But even when the album came out, again it gets buried because there was so much amazing material that not enough people appreciated how intricate and in depth and how epic Armageddon is. So Armageddon's my pick for most slept on, even though it seems like it's not. But I don't think it ever got the shine, even to this day, that it deserves.
Two things about that song come to mind. One is Soldier Boy saying that it was in consideration for the Armageddon movie, and that would have changed the landscape of that song completely if it would have ended up in that movie. It definitely wouldn't be the most slept on to you then. Imagine during one of those action songs, those big notes from Felicia about the Armageddon coming. It would have changed that movie as well. And the other thing I think of is the Mo Hart interview when he said, "Yo, the last of the Mohicans were me, Soldier Boy, Thug Queen, Felicia and Crazy Bone. We were the last of the Mohicans." And we saw that live performance, and there's all those pictures of all them together like that. And this track itself is like the last of the Mohican track as well.
Yeah, well, and that's funny you say that because that was segueing to the question that I was going to ask you was that so you have the Last of the Mohicans with Mo Hart, Felicia, Thug Queen, Soldier Boy. You also have, I said Mo Hart, right? And then you also have the Night Riders, which was like, okay, so is the Night Riders Thug Line or is it Mo Thugs? And then you also have These Days featuring Thugline artists, Kmon, Asun, Bam. And then you also have there's another song that has the relay, right? And the song's called like Thugline.
Mm-hmm.
So when I got the album, I was like, all right, so because I'm still fresh off of All Good and Ghetto Cowboy, like all that kind of came around the same time. So I'm like, all right, is I guess Mo Thug's Lazy Bones thing and Thugline is Krayzie's thing, but there's Mo Thug artists and Thugline artists on the same album. Did you ever like overthink that, or did you ever have any feelings about that?
So I remember when I got the booklet and I opened the booklet and it was all these Thugline artists. And at that time, of course, we didn't know that the Night Riders were, made up of a bunch of former Mo Thugs. Um, so I remember kind of feeling like, almost sadness, like, is he not with Mo Thug? And I do remember having the confusion of the actual Mo Thug song on there, the Armageddon track. And of course, like, I'm sure these tracks were recorded over quite some span. But at that time, you don't feel like that, right? You feel like you went into the studio and composed all these specifically right now for this. So I do remember the confusion of the Mo Thug, being in there, and it felt like he was now out of Mo Thug. You had all these Thug Line artists. But at the same time, I did like Thug Line. Like it felt like Mo Thug, but like edgier, I guess, or like
Mm.
it just felt like I want to use the right wording because I love Mo Thug like more than I love Thug Line, but there was something exciting about Thug Line, and I will say that we saw an eventual decline in a lot of affiliates, not all of them, but there became a time where the affiliates around Bone were not as strong as the original ones. But I thought all the initial Thug Line affiliates were really good, really strong. It was different. A lot of them didn't have that what I call the Mo Thug Cleveland sound. You
Mhm.
know, so it changed the landscape a little bit, but I thought it was all right because Thug Mentality 1999 also had a different landscape itself. So they seemed to fit in, and I really liked it. I even liked the Night Riders, and this is well before I knew anything about who they really were, just because I thought, again, this is so different. Of course these fucking guys fit in. These fucking weirdo motherfuckers. I thought that Crazy Bone had spent all that time on tour with ICP, and I was just like, because he'd spent a bunch of time on tour with ICP, and I was like, oh, he just got into this shit, and so he signed his own Insane Clown Posse group. So
Yeah, and you don't want to throw a clarification in there. Graveyard Shift, Tombstone, and Sin are on the album on Silence, so we
yeah,
don't want to leave that out.
I
So they
I,
were
I
still,
think
in the
I think even then though, didn't we even know back then that that was probably we must have known that that was a Graveyard Shift cut. I mean, it was 99. Tombstone had been gone for a couple years at that point. Um,
yeah.
at least, you know what I mean? Because I'm pretty sure. Yeah. So I think even then we probably knew that that was kind of like an older cut.
Mm. Yeah, I just wanted to point out that they are Mo Thugs and they are on Thug Mentality 99. So, I was looking at it as, all right, so these are the guys that are breaking off of Crazy, and whoever's left is with Lazy, and then I was thinking maybe these guys were going to bridge over to Thug Line and
See,
then
at
wonder
that
how
time,
that
it
worked.
didn't feel split yet. It just felt like Crazy Bone. It just felt like we had like the Mo Thugs, which we always said were all Bones guys, but as we've kind of found out, like Mo Thug was kind of a Lazy Bone thing, even though it was like all the Bone guys. Like we found out that was more of a Lazy Bone thing. So it just felt like we got introduced to now Crazy Bones guys, and it felt like an extension. So it didn't feel separated yet. It just felt like an extension. So in today's world, it would feel weird that we had this crossover because we know so much about the Bone story, but back then it felt normal. Like, of course the Mo Thug guys would hang out with the Thug Line guys. Like it's all one big team.
Yeah. Yeah, and we never really got a chance to see any crossover, any chances for crossovers. I was really curious to see how that was going to play out going forward, but it just, none of it kind of panned out in that way. So yeah, well, that's what I got. You got anything else to add to this Thug Mentality 99 epic 38 track perfection exemplified opus?
No, I think we got it. I guess we should hit the recap. I don't remember all yours, so I'll just recap mine. My best, I said the best was Heated Heavy. I also said my favorite was Heated Heavy. I said the most important was Thug Always because it showed the unification between Bone and Crazy in 1999. I said the worst was that shitty Look at You Now skit, and the most slept on was Revolution. Johnny, what'd you have for him?
For my favorite, I had Murder Mo. For the best, I had Heated Heavy. For the worst, I had Where My Thugs At, and I qualified that as my least favorite. It's not the worst. It's my least favorite. The most important, I just copped out and did Thug Mentality. My most slept on was Armageddon, and I also want to just throw in there, without going into any detail, but Smoking Buddha by Crazy Bone is the best Bone Weed song ever. It's number one. I don't care what you got on your Bone Weed list, but it's also got uh, some internet fame for your boy. But yeah, so Smoking Buddha is definitely the best Bone Weed song. Do you disagree with that? Do you have a better Bone Weed song than Smoking Buddha?
I think we save that for what is the best Bone Weed song question of the week. I will say, if you guys have never looked up the Smokin' Buddha music video, you got to look that up because your boy John Lippy made that viral before viral was viral. And if you've ever seen that video, then you've seen John without even knowing that you've seen John. So now you've heard our best, worst, favorite, most important, most slept on. But now it's time for you to hit these comments up and let us know the best, the worst, your favorite, the most important, the most slept on. Make sure you drop them all in the comments. Don't forget to like this and share it with another Bone fan so that we can find out what they think is the best, worst, most important, favorite, and most slept on. And we will catch y'all on the next one.
Beyond the harmony for the fans we celebrate.